Good morning, Debbie. Good morning, everyone. Today's the third of a series of, I think, 4 or 5 talks on karma and rebirth. But we'll meditate first. So find your relaxed meditative posture. Gently close your eyes and gently close your mouths. And holding your back straight but not stiff. Your ears aligned with your shoulders, and nose aligned with your navel. And holding yourself very loosely, very gently, very lovingly. Allow yourselves to settle into this room. Settle onto your seats. Settle into your bodies. And settle into your minds. And take a moment to become aware of the sensation of breathing in your body. Just get a feel for what that's like, to be mindful of your breath in your body. And while remaining mindful of your breath in your body, notice that thoughts are flowing. The purpose of meditation is to not be distracted by your own thoughts. So when you find that you're caught up in your thinking again, simply acknowledge that and return your mindfulness to the sensation of breathing. Relaxing your thoughts, remaining mindful of your breathing. And we'll meditate for 30 minutes with callbacks every 5 minutes. Relaxing thoughts, remaining mindful of your breathing. 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 Good. 'Cause, 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 relaxing thoughts, remaining mindful of your breathing. If a persistent thought or feeling arises for a moment or two, recognize it as impermanent and return your mindfulness to the sensation of breathing. And we'll meditate for 5 more minutes. take a moment to notice the quality of your mind. Be at peace with your mind. And when you're ready, you can gently open your eyes. Good morning, Helen.
Good morning.
Good to see you.
Thank you. Good to be here. Sorry to step in a few minutes.
Thank you, made it.
I was having a morning sit at home and I said, wait a minute, I can be with the Sangha.
See you Tuesday. That was an auspicious thought. So today's the third of a series of talks, I think probably 5 maybe, on karma and rebirth. Just to kind of recap, karma is the present moment unfolding of past intentional actions moderated by the present quality of our mindfulness. And what that long sentence means is the way we experience the unfolding of karma is determined by what we're holding in mind, the refined mindfulness. And if our mindfulness is,
Sorry.
Sounds like my dog is coming.
Our mindfulness is
If our mindfulness isn't distracted by our dog. Hello, Buds. Come here. Let him say hello and then he'll calm down.
That's it. Okay.
Hey, Buds.
Wait.
Okay, go sit down. Karma. Here's a good example of it right there. A mind well framed, experience the quality of mind well framed by the Eightfold Path, will no longer contribute additional karma. Karma is not a predetermined system of reward and punishment. It's not something imposed on us by a supreme being. It's not part of a so-called spiritual system of behavioral harmony. Karma is simply what's occurring in our life right now and how we're reacting to that. Let me just read the Buddha's word from last week that we touched on. And notice how this relates directly to Four Noble Truths. The first noble truth is dukkha occurs. There's dukkha in life. There's a general unsatisfactory nature to life. Here the Buddha addresses that this way. Karma should be understood correctly. We should understand dukkha. When the Buddha describes an awakened human being, the first qualification is dukkha is understood. Right? Karma should be. When the Buddha describes an awakened human being, he describes that awakened human being as someone who understands karma. So,
But also manifests the Dharma and integrates the Dhamma. It's more than just knowing. Right?
oh yeah, it's a profound understanding of the whole process of dukkha occurring in the world and our reaction to it. So karma can be looked at as our intentional acts unfolding in our life and our reaction to that. And so if we have a conditioned mind, our reaction is going to be similar in always creating more karma in our life. So karma is just a word to describe what's occurring in our life. If you want to know what your karma is, take a look in your mirror and take a good look at your life right now. That's your karma. Again, karma is not a system. It's not something occurring outside of ourselves. And as the Buddha says, it's something that should be understood. The reason why I'm reading this, actually for the second time because I read it last week, is karma is often dismissed as an archaic teaching that the Buddha only taught to relate to the common practices of his time. And it's presented in a way that it's not really that important. And it's often portrayed as it's a punishment reward system. Understanding the Dhamma requires understanding karma and what we'll probably get to in the next couple of weeks on rebirth. It's so important. So the Buddha took time to actually qualify it this way. Karma should be understood correctly. The cause of karma should be understood. The second noble truth says the craving initiates and clinging perpetuates suffering. Correct? That this unsatisfying experiences in life. So the cause of karma should be understood. We should understand karma. We should understand craving and clinging. And it's easy to say, okay, go ahead and understand it. But because we are at some level suffering from conditioned mind, a mind that insists on ignoring anything that would challenge its own ignorance, we don't see it. We don't recognize craving and clinging. In fact, we'll often glorify craving and clinging, such as it's part of life. Shouldn't we be enamored with all of life? That's kind of an extreme view that results from this need for always having a positive view. A positive view is just a confused view. And once we develop something that we feel that we like, or find something that we rather not have, we start clinging to that view. And that only furthers karma. It only furthers our experience of the unsatisfactory nature of life, because we're insisting that it be different than it is. Is that clear? The cause of karma should be understood. The diversity of the results of karma should be understood. What that means is that our karma unfolds in an almost infinite manner of ways. A good example of this would be the sutta where Angulamala the murder, but I won't get into the sutta. Many people would say if you do one act, you will have to experience the exactly corresponding act. If you kill someone, you're going to have to suffer being killed. If you hurt someone by screaming at them, a couple days later or a couple lifetimes later, somebody's going to scream at you. If you cause an illness towards someone, 1 million lifetimes down the road, you're going to have that experience. If you steal, somebody's going to steal from you. All of those things. That's not karma. Again, karma is not a system of direct punishment and reward. Another way of looking at karma is and this is common in modern Buddhism, that by doing a lot of good works for someone, in the future you will get the recipient of a lot of good works. None of that's true. Why is that? Because dukkha occurs. Nothing is permanent in the world. So you cannot establish something in this moment and say that it's going to occur in the next moment. Something that's diluted. Karma is the present moment unfolding of past intentional actions moderated by our present level of mindfulness. So the diversity of it means that a past intentional act manifests at some point in the future, and it might be the next moment in our life, not in a direct correlation, but because of conditioned thinking, we'll have a reaction to it based on that conditioned thinking. So another way of clarifying karma is karma isn't really what's happening to us. It's our thinking. And our thinking in relation to our life unfolding.
Past intentional actions, what about unintentional actions? Wouldn't that, can you clarify that?
Yes, and an intentional action is just that. It's something that we intended to do. And it's something that results from conditioned thinking, something that continues to establish a self-referential ego personality. An example of an unintentional action would be anything that occurs to you that you didn't intend to happen. It could be getting a rear ender. It could be getting caught up in a hurricane. It still drives me nuts when I listen to the news and people are blaming these natural disasters on the way people are living their lives. That's just part of living on the planet, and there's no intention behind it. And so if we get hit with a 20-foot wave, we shouldn't look at it like, oh, I'm getting blamed for something from a bad life. It's just part of living in the world. And the reason why that's important is then we don't react to it in a foolish way. But something that we do that has intention is going to imprint our minds. So it's not imprinting this great cosmic system that, okay, now something has to happen to you. We've created a condition in our mind based on a wrong view that we are now bound because of how life unfolds. Not because of some system, because of how life unfolds, to have a reaction to that now. I always use the idea of a chocolate cake. I decided that one piece of chocolate cake is never enough. So when the chocolate cake is gone, no matter how wonderful that one piece was, I'm disappointed. But I've also conditioned my mind now to never be satisfied with one piece of chocolate cake. The reason why I keep using this is it's such a simple and somewhat silly notion, but it explains the process. So now you come over to my house with a wonderful piece of chocolate cake because you know I like it. And by the way, thanks for all that chocolate on my birthday. It wasn't enough, by the way. And so it's not enough. Because of the imprint that I've made on my mind, the condition that I put on my life, one piece is never enough. I can never be satisfied. So instead of enjoying that wonderful experience of being with you and having a piece of your chocolate cake, the ultimate result is I'm disappointed. It's silly, isn't it? But without the conditioning, without the initial reaction, then the piece of chocolate cake is wonderful and it's enough. And I'm able to be present with the person that made the chocolate cake, rather than thinking about that. Again, it's kind of a silly example and maybe a little bit foolish, but does it make sense to you all? That with anything that we react to in any way, in any self-referential way, in any way rooted in wrong view, is creating a condition in our minds. We're placing a condition on our life, and it creates additional karma. So the intention is what's important. If there was no intention, I just enjoyed the cake, thanked you for it, and that was it. There's no intention for that moment to be any different. Did I clear that up?
No need for future reaction.
Yes. Liz had her hand up.
Well, that was my question. So Laura asked them intention, and so if there was no intention moving through the phenomenal world, and there's no intention for whatever it is, a human interaction to happen, if there was no intention on your part, then it's not karma.
Well, it won't. Yes, it's not. And the best way to say it is it won't contribute to further karma. And the reason why that's important is if we're not contributing to a more conditioned reaction to life, then we can start diminishing the effects of karma.
So is karma, well, I thought I understood karma as there's no, you're always experiencing karma. Like even
You're experiencing the results of, or the momentum of karma.
right, like even if you don't have, you're taking life as it comes without reacting through your conditioned mind. There's still a karma unfolding based on how you are in the world. Like I thought I understood this. Like there was maybe I misunderstood it though.
As you awaken, as your mind is well framed by the Eightfold Path, and you're no longer reacting to life, there's no results of the karma, of your past karma. You don't experience it, it's gone.
Yes, okay. But
it's gone only because your mind is you have developed such a quality of mind that you're no longer reacting to life as life occurs.
But is there future karma that's then unfolding that's just in a different light? Like
Oh no.
No.
Karma only occurs within, in fact I'm going to touch on it a little bit. Karma only unfolds within even a remnant of wrong view. In other words, the Buddha awakened, and he still had moments where there was great physical suffering in his life over the next 45 years. But but that wasn't the result of karma. It was simply the result of having a human life. The great example of that is when the Buddha died from eating some bad pork that was given to him. And he knew that. He knew he was gravely ill, and the story is pretty explicit. But nowhere in the story does he react poorly. In other words, and he didn't blame the person, his name was Kunda, C-U-N-D-A, who gave him the bad pork. In fact, Ananda was a little upset and and the Buddha said, no, he did that out of compassion for me. He was trying to feed me.
yeah.
There was nothing to be upset about. So in that moment, the Buddha, if he was still of wrong view, he could have been screaming and hollering and let's bring this guy to his knees and bring him in here and we'll lash him. There was nothing there. It was just part of living in the world.
John, also though, when the from the day of the Buddha's awakening, when he said, you know, whatever, all things have been extinguished, you know, and etc. That then for 45 years, he no longer gave birth to deluded youths.
Yeah.
So he continued to, that body continued to live out, and he continued to live out, you know, his personality, let's just say, in the body or something, but it was no longer attached to he was no longer attached to the view that that was himself, you know, his ego personality, and he didn't give any rise.
Yep.
He didn't become
That's why I said that karma is our thinking. It has nothing to do with our body in that way, like Maura was saying.
Okay.
It's simply the way it really is the way that we're thinking. Once our mind clears, it's not that karma is extinguished. There's no field for karma to bloom in anymore. So again, it's not some process that is ongoing, except in the way that our conditioned mind keeps recreating the conditions of distress. That's the only thing that karma has hold on or gains momentum from, our own thinking. Again, it's not something happening outside of us. It's not something imposed on us. It's simply the result of our thinking in this present moment.
So the Buddha no longer experienced karma once he awakened.
There was nothing left to experience because his mind had cleared.
Right. And the other thing was when I heard with regard to intention. So what I heard you say, and I mean not exactly, but I just want to clarify that if we have intention, then we are still clinging and craving, and in ego. So if you're intention, where our ego is having that intention.
Well, there's two sides. There's wrong or unskillful intention, which is the
right.
intention to maintain a self-referential ego self through craving and clinging.
Mm-hmm.
And right intention or skillful intention is the intention to recognize that process. So you can see how that directly.
But within the context of the phrase past and actions,
Yes.
then we're talking about just. Oh no!
Not necessarily.
Because if you have right, okay.
See
Because
it.
if you have good intention, then you're directing yourself.
That's
towards-
and thank you, because that is so important. That's really the essence of what
Okay.
I'm spending 5 weeks to talk about. What's our intention in this moment? Because each moment holds the potential to awaken. If our intention is to recognize it, so we can, we're done. Thank you. That really is it. So let me get back to the Buddha's
Can I
word.
just add one last thing?
Quickly,
Laura,
please.
I don't know if you were often in the mundane view, intention just means what was your intention in that moment? Were you trying to be helpful or unhelpful or whatever, your motivation? But in the Buddhist view, intention is a deeper awakening. It's different than the mundane use of intention.
Yes, but it's also framed by that. So if your intention is to awaken, your behavior will be also pure because it's framed by the Eightfold Path. Again, that's why it's
Are
not.
you referring to the Buddhism
Yeah,
intention, the skillful intention?
Exactly,
Yeah.
to awaken, to let go of clinging and craving.
Yeah, I was just trying to define what that word was in the context you were using it.
Is it clear now?
Yes, for
Okay.
the moment.
Okay, good. Okay, so I'm just going to read briefly what I just said. Karma should be understood correctly. The cause of karma should be understood. The diversity of the results of karma should be understood. Cessation of karma should be understood. That means if we're going to develop the cessation of karma, that relates directly to the fourth noble truth, the development of the Eightfold Path. That's how we end our karma. Again, this is another teaching that kind of refutes a lot of misunderstandings about karma and even the Eightfold Path. If we want to end karma, we develop the Eightfold Path. So that was a recap of what we've just covered the last 2 weeks. So now let's get to today, if I can find it. A few other phrases that define karma. Karma is your ego personality's experience of craving and clinging within anicca, within impermanence. It's, again, relating it to the 3 marks of existence. Another way of saying that is anatta, wrong views of self, creates karma. And remember, karma is not something outside of ourselves. It creates that way of thinking that we have an ongoing unsatisfactory experience in life. Another way of even stating that is when dukkha ends, when unsatisfying experiences end, our karma has ended. And we've ended it directly. There's no more momentum. There's no more intention. There's nothing fueling unsatisfactory experiences for the sole reason that we see life correctly. We understand the Four Noble Truths. Getting back to how the Buddha described that. Suffering is understood. Karma should be understood. Right? Karma is the direct experiences of the results of ignorance. Remember that ignorance, dependent origination states from ignorance to 12 observable causative links, all manner of suffering arises. That's why the Buddha taught Four Noble Truths, to recognize and abandon that process. Understanding karma is understanding dukkha. Understanding dukkha inclines your mind towards abandoning craving and clinging and begins to unravel the links of dependent origination. Clear? Okay. With awakened right view, no attachment to the ego personality is present, and any experience is simply an experience in the world that is dispassionately observed with mindful presence. That describes how to live in the world and not create any additional karma. It's not easy at first, is it? Because that's the essence of an awakened human being in the world in a completely mindful way without reacting to what's occurring. And so, just to qualify that, because some people will take that, well, does that mean we have no feelings at all? We don't have, no, it means that in the moment, our actions, our thoughts, words, and deeds will be appropriate to what's occurring in that moment. Any event that occurs in the phenomenal world is an opportunity to remain dispassionately present with a mind settled in equanimity, meaning no matter what happens. Somebody kind of threw this up at me last week. I can't remember the situation, but there was a misunderstanding of what meditation is about, and the kind of the line that they said is a person a master of meditation could be sitting at when an explosion goes off and not move. And that's not meditation alone. A person that has developed awakening through the Eightfold Path, if was sitting in where an explosion went off, would probably jump up. And the next thing they would do is find out where they can be helpful. What happened? What can I do to help? It's not a way of having bombs go off around you and don't have any response to it at all. That's just silly. That's not being human. It's certainly not a middle way, is it? So developing the Eightfold Path doesn't take away our ability to be true human beings and truly compassionate. In fact, it develops the ability to be fully present and respond always skillfully in what's occurring in our life without creating any more karma. Once a reaction to an event has occurred, further karma is established. A mind settled in equanimity will cease creating additional karma. The Buddha's words. A fool and a wise person are both characterized by their actions. It is through the actions of one's life that reveals the fool or the sage. The fool engages in three things: bodily misconduct, verbal misconduct, and mental misconduct. The sage engages in three things: good bodily conduct, good verbal conduct, and good mental conduct. Thus, friends, train yourself as a sage in thought, word, and deed. Kaya. That's the end of the Buddha's words. Your experience of the unfolding of your karma is not predetermined. The state or quality of your mind in each moment determines your experience of karma unfolding. I know I'm saying the same thing kind of over and over again, but are you getting that? You understand that?
That's how we learn.
Yeah. A reactive mind will further karma. A mind of equanimity will bring a peaceful experience of karma unfolding and avoid additional karma. So as that momentum of karma is manifesting in our lives, and we have a reaction based on a conditioned mind, it's at that moment when we practice restraint that we're diminishing the effect of karma. So the reaction was brought about by our past karma, our past conditioned thinking. But our mindfulness won't allow us to go any further. A good example of that is we find ourselves caught up in a situation where we in the past had reacted, and we continue to react but we recognize it. And usually this is a fairly profound experience. For the first time, we're able to control our reactions because we're now well framed by the Eightfold Path. We might react in an unskillful way and maybe even cause harm to another or towards ourselves, but we're mindful of it. It's at that point that the Dhamma is taking hold. And it's at that point that we can now not create additional karma. We can practice restraint. So we might start beating ourselves up by saying, oh, I acted or reacted again poorly like I always did. The important thing is recognizing that you recognized it, because it's at that point that you can start undoing karma. So the momentum or the potential of karma pushed you into that moment of a reaction or a disturbed mind, but the Dhamma is allowing you to see it, to recognize it. And it's through that recognition that you can now start abandoning the results of that conditioned behavior. That's how we bring karma to cessation. Does everybody get that?
That is so fabulous.
It is, and that little thing right there is really the essence of how we awaken. It's not by imagining ourselves to be pure and free and compassionate and always loving, because that's impossible if we have conditioned mind. It's why those types of spiritual practices don't work.
That's also ego self.
It is. But if we acknowledge, if we accept where we are, you know, that little saying I like to use, if you're in New York but you want to get to Chicago, but you think you're in Los Angeles, you can't get there. You have to know where you are if you're going to get to incorporate the Dhamma and develop awakening. You have to accept the fact that I'm ignorant of Four Noble Truths. What the Buddha just said, karma must be understood. And then the cessation of karma must be understood. How do we do it? Through the Eightfold Path. We learn to see things clearly. We learn to recognize the results of ignorance manifesting in our life. It's another way of saying karma manifesting in our life. And as it occurs, as our present moment life occurs, if our mindfulness is well framed by the Eightfold Path, we'll practice restraint and stop creating additional karma. Clear? And this relates to what we'll be getting to in the next weeks about rebirth, because it's at that moment that we control what we're giving birth to. And if not, if we react poorly and continue to react, again, all is not lost. It's at that point we practice restraint. At any point in our lives, no matter how far down the karmic path we've gone, we can develop the Eightfold Path and bring the momentum of karma to cessation. That's the story of Angulimala, the murderer. Murdered 99 people, was going to murder the Buddha. He saw the Buddha gave him a brief teaching. Angulimala awakened, never heard another person again. Angulimala didn't have to suffer 99 deaths. All he had to do was hear the Dhamma and take to it. And his past karma vanished. Why? Because his mind cleared. That's barely anywhere along in this article, but I think it's a good place to stop, isn't it? Or should I go on a little bit more? Okay, I'll take that.
Go on, Dad. Go on.
Okay, Bones. While it is more desirable to experience the effects of karma, this is an important point to make this week too. While it is more desirable to experience the effects of karma pleasurably, meaning to do things, and this is often taught this way, do good acts because then you'll start having good experiences. That's important to a certain extent, but if we can get caught up in that too, that, okay, I just want to create a good day for tomorrow, so I'm going to do a lot of good things today. Look at the eye-making in that. And look at the kind of the stress in that, always looking for good things to do.
And the intention is wrong.
And the intention is to continue eye-making.
Right.
While it is more pleasurable to experience the effects of karma pleasurably, to have good karma, all karma contributes to dukkha and rebirth. All karma is to be extinguished. And that points to the importance of awakening in this moment. Not to only be concerned about being compassionate so that I will have a good future. Because what are you doing? You'll create situations that you'll see things differently, but you're not solving the underlying problem of being stuck in the ongoing cycle of dukkha. Because no matter how many good works you do, you're still subject to the common suffering of humanity. It's still there. Better to awaken and let go of even the stress of creating good karma and just living your life as life occurs. Is that clear, the distinction? Because it's an important one. It's a little bit more than just practicing the three factors of the middle factor, the virtuous factors of the Eightfold Path. Again, the Buddha taught an Eightfold Path. If it was just about being virtuous, I would imagine he would have just taught, just do good acts and you're good to go. But it was more than just a set of commandments of how to live our life. It was a way of changing our thinking, because that's the problem. And it's really our thinking that underlies our behavior anyway. So even if we have a view that we're less than 100% perfect, which is a self-referential view in itself, our actions will naturally follow from that view of where we're lacking. So an awakened right view is there's nothing lacking, and there's no potential for hurtful acts. That's why I often say that the greatest freedom comes from finally integrating the Eightfold Path and not necessarily having it fully developed. When we integrate it into our lives and we know that in thought, words, and deeds, we're good to go. We're not going to cause any harm for other people. And there is incredible freedom in that. We're going to live our life in a virtuous way, remaining harmless to others and ourselves. Okay, I am just going to go a little bit further. Holding the conscious intention to act in a certain manner to develop favorable karma will accomplish just that, develop additional karma. The result will be to forever perpetuate dukkha. This is why it is critical to be mindful of right view and the strong resolve, the right intention, to abandon all craving and clinging and awaken. Dukkha describes the underlying unsatisfactory experience of life in the phenomenal world. Karma describes your contribution to your experience of the underlying experience, unsatisfactory experience. Your karma is your dukkha. Is that clear?
Can you read it again?
Sure. Dukkha describes the underlying unsatisfactory of life in the phenomenal world. The Buddha declared the first noble truth as dukkha occurs. Karma describes your contribution to your experience of the underlying unsatisfactory experience. Your karma is your dukkha, right? And our karma is the result of the way we think. Clear up your thinking. No more karma. No more contributing to dukkha. Tuesday, I think it was Helen that suggested, is going to be on the Salata Sutta. Remember that sutta is the second arrow. Unsatisfactory experiences will arise in the world no matter what the quality of our mind is. But if the quality of our mind is such, we won't stick that second arrow in. We won't react.
Because we'll realize it's the unfolding of past karma and bringing mindfulness to it.
And now the intention is to hurt yourself.
In a sense, yeah.
Bringing mindfulness to it, mindfulness of letting go of clinging and craving, we can just watch what arises.
Yep.
And not, so, and actually being beneficial, create an awakening moment rather than further.
Yeah, with no reaction. Again, going back to that, practicing restraint at any point.
There's no reaction, right? But there's an awareness. So there's an action.
Yeah, there's a very mindful awareness, an awareness that is framed now by right view, by seeing things clearly. Any tinge even of an ego personality attached to it.
Almost in a sense, it can become exciting. Well, maybe exciting isn't a good word to use, but it's a great opportunity.
Oh, it's very meaningful. Fulfilling is a good word to use. It's not exciting, but life becomes, and this is another.
But like in that moment, what I was saying, in that moment, right? So one sees there's lots, they're unfolding constantly, but like say it's something particularly unpleasant that you might have done, or even something pleasant. And then it's just rather than viewing it at all negatively, it's actually quite a great opportunity.
It's just It's even more than a great opportunity. It's the way to live your life. Life becomes meaningful. I had a tooth extraction yesterday. At the end of it, they said, you're the most pleasant patient we ever had. I'm not trying to say how wonderful I am, but it was just what it was. It didn't have to be any different. But and they were really nice people, and the other people were wonderful, and it was just a pleasant experience. But I know you're laughing. I've had teeth extracted that weren't so pleasant, and the result was that the people around me weren't that pleasant either. It was a completely painless experience. And again, I'm not saying and it's only because the Dhamma works. Oh, it was a ton of Novocaine too, but the Novocaine didn't make the people pleasant.
That's right.
So, anyway, it was. Thanks for bringing that up more, because it reminded me of what an auspicious day it was yesterday. Jen, you had a question.
Yeah, can you just read that one?
Sure.
I think it's one paragraph back where it starts with doing something with the intention of getting good karma will perpetuate karma, still perpetuates karma. And then you said that's why it's important. I don't know if you were reading that or you were just speaking. But that's why it's important to hold on to right or do right.
Yes, and this is why modern engaged Buddhism doesn't work in developing awakening, because your intention is always to be doing good works, but from a self-referential point of view. So
that second part was the part I want to hear again. Right after that, you said
holding
this instead.
I think this is it. Holding the conscious intention to act in a certain manner to develop favorable karma will accomplish just that: develop additional karma. Right. So karma is not good or bad. It's just something we want to be rid of.
Right.
The result will be to forever perpetuate dukkha. This is why it is crucial to be mindful of right view and the strong resolve, the right intention, to abandon all craving and clinging and awaken. Is that it?
That's why it's important to maintain right view and right intention.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, and we do that through the entire Eightfold Path. Right. Even just the right intention to awaken isn't enough, is it? Because we don't have any frame of reference for how to recognize that. When you really start understanding each of the factors of the Eightfold Path, you realize how brilliant it is. There's nothing more that needs to be there, but there's nothing less either. Mm-hmm. I'm going to read the next paragraph again. And then, Dukkha describes the underlying unsatisfactory experience of life in the phenomenal world. Karma describes your contribution to your experience of the underlying experience, unsatisfactory experience. Dukkha is going to occur. How we react or respond to that is our karma. And once we get caught up in reacting, karma is proliferated. Once we recognize that and cease the reaction through the entire Eightfold Path, there's no more karma. Life doesn't end. But what occurs is always, as Maura was pointing out, entirely meaningful, simply because we're present. It doesn't need to be any different than what's occurring. No matter how unpleasant the experience might be.
Or pleasant.
We don't seek for more of it.
Just if I do something and it gets recognized.
Yes.
And I react to that recognition instead of just going, somebody, if it's not enough, or I want more of it, or I think that makes me a certain type of person because of it. Those are all reactions and furthering of karma that's going to be delusional.
Yes. One more paragraph here, and we'll call it. Intentional actions will determine the continuation or cessation of confusion and stress. Altruistic or compassionate actions taken without wisdom can often generate further karmic entanglements. This can be very subtle and difficult to recognize. For example, if an underlying motivation and intention for compassionate action is to fulfill a view of what it means to be a good person or a good Buddhist, the resulting karma will reinforce an ego personality. I really shouldn't stop here. Altruistic and compassionate actions that are an expression of an awakened mind will always benefit all with no karmic entanglements or consequences. It'll just be a natural unfoldment of an awakened human being. This is not to say that one should not act with compassion and in accordance with the framework of the Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path provides guidance against continued self-identification and I-making. Holding the intention to establish and defend an ego self leads to action and reaction that inevitably creates additional karma. Through the article, 40%. That's enough for today, I think. Any questions for related to what I just read and what we talked about, and then we'll go around the room. Anthony, good to see you this morning.
Good to see you. Thanks for the talk. It was like I so needed to be here today because I could be in a situation to create a lot of additional karma. So I've been trying to monitor that mostly. Yeah, we have a house in the Keys, and it's like in the 150-mile-an-hour winds right now, and so I've had these occasional thoughts of catastrophizing the situation, but I've been working to not create additional karma.
That's outstanding.
And it's interesting because, like, you can start to think, why me, or those kinds of things. So yeah, because the irony of it is, like, not having children and having one really good year, we were able to buy this house, and we were just about a week from selling it. So that's up in the air, and then the place we might buy is probably going to be destroyed. So it's like that one event can just change a lot of things for you, and how you deal with that is so important. So I have to say, like 75–80% of the time, I'm pretty good. Every once in a while, a thought will creep in, and then I'll go, yeah, well, stop that.
That's outstanding. And right there, you're practicing restraint.
Yeah.
It's
also,
it's an awful event, but it's simply part of living in the world. And with a well-concentrated mind framed by the Eightfold Path, you see it clearly. So good for you. And I mean, not good that it's happening, but good for you that you're able to maintain a mind of equanimity through it.
And it's nice because Debbie and I both feel the same way. We both said, all right, this is the ride we're on. Let's just ride it, let's see what happens. Who knows, this could turn out better in some way, or it could show us a sign, or, who knows, but bearing down and feeling bad about it is not going to help anything.
It never does.
And there's so many other people, who you could really feel bad about. We don't live there. People live there. And so we're monitoring that because we're seeing the emails about people we know in our development who are trying to stay there. The situation is, and then I have relatives in Florida and friends in Miami, and it's just, it's pretty intense now. So it's really good to be here and hear this, because it makes me feel like I'm on the right path.
Yeah, I think you are. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jen, good to see you this morning.
Good to see you. Practice is going well. And last week I was saying that I was distracted, and your response, I don't know if you realize it or not, it wasn't like you were giving me advice. You just said that's why it's important to always start your day with, because it frames your day and how sort of you're going to be moving through all the dukkha that's coming at you. It's kind of how I took it. And that was really helpful to kind of recharge me in just being very, like, putting in right effort to sit for a good chunk of time in the morning and really kind of have the resolve to reinvigorate my morning meditation. And I've seen the results of that, and it's been nice to see, even though there's been because I'm starting school up again, even though it's sort of this surge of the fire discourse comes to mind. It's just, there's just so many things happening and so many people, just excitement and children and exuberance and teacher stress and, there's just so much happening. And it was interesting to have the perspective that I had on it for I think the first time in 15 years I've been teaching, where I was like, wow, this is intense. The first couple days were really intense, and I don't think I've ever really recognized that. So it was good to kind of, the end of the week, and I'm feeling like, was nice to just say, yeah, you're feeling like that because it's really intense, and not have all the additional reaction to feeling that way. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for just like Anthony, your developing practice is bringing quite a measure of calm.
Yeah.
And you're right too. Relating if we're going to end our karma, it's pretty simple, but we have to develop the Eightfold Path, including meditation. It doesn't just happen. Or you can let him. It looks like he wants to come over and say hello. You can let him.
I just want to snuggle him.
Yeah, so he's comfy right now.
Okay.
I'm not hoping. Can I just make a comment on that?
Let me go get to hell. We'll be right.
It won't make sense. All right,
Okay. What is it, more?
Just I'll skip my turn. All right, when it comes to me, that I was
Parabolics.
I heard somebody else
Sit down.
speak
Sit.
about
Sit.
the beginning of school last night from a quote unquote Buddhist perspective, and I will just say, Jen, that's why I said thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for being in the world and having a dedicated practice and being able to articulate the integration of the path. Warms my heart, so thank you.
Thanks, Maura. Helen, good morning. Good to see you.
Good morning, Don. Thank you.
Get out of the
Great to be here. Great to be with everybody. I had an experience yesterday. I was visiting with a friend, and she has an incredible memory. Like, she can remember anything that anyone has ever said to her, she has said to them, and it's a blessing and a curse, she says.
Yeah.
Talking about, I guess she was talking about different people in her life and her relationships with them, and that she was starting to find that she had to leave out of her life now. Mm. And I could see the stress and the disturbance that was causing her, that there were these reasons that she was doing this. And so I was just able to talk to her, in a broad framework about what we do here. And she began asking more and more questions and interest in it. And I think it gave her the opportunity to frame things differently, that it didn't have to be, that if someone was causing you stress in your life, you didn't have to cut them off and still carry that feeling with you of what was the stress they brought to your life, that you could just accept it. And I think that was like a real eye-opener for her, that you could do that. So it was like, yes, you can give yourself permission to do that. So it's interesting the way, the more you learn about this and go through all of the layers, the more it sort of permeates your being, and then people respond to that and begin to ask questions about it. To go and stand on a soapbox and preach it, that certainly wouldn't be the way, but it's just really fascinating how the opportunities to share it come up. Yeah. And it just feels so good to be able to articulate it and hopefully bring something good to someone else's life.
Yeah.
And your own.
And your own, yeah. And it sure sounds like you did.
Yeah, I was going to leave at 4:00. I didn't hit the road till almost 8 o'clock.
Wow.
We were just gonna sit down on the sofa and have a drink of water before I hit the road, and
Wow.
Yeah, good for you and good for your friend. And it is just that way. It's just seeing things differently, and you can do it.
it's so freeing.
Yeah. Thank you.
So much peace.
Thank you. And thank you for carrying the Dhamma.
Thank you for bringing it to me.
Laura, good to see you this morning.
Good to be here. It's been a while. I don't really have much to say. I'm just glad to be back at Sangha, and hopefully I will be starting my practice more consistently, not so sporadically at home. Yeah, that's it. It's a long journey. So
Thank you. Do you see intention in relation to karma a little more clearly?
I do.
Good.
I do. Yeah, that was good. That was clear. I don't think I really understood karma before today completely, so now I have a much clearer picture.
Thank
Hopefully I
you.
don't forget it.
Glad you're here. I threw the word around for years and years and years, but I never understood it until I read what the Buddha taught on it.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. You know. Tommy, good to see you this morning. How are you?
Thanks. Thank you. Your analogy about the chocolate cake was penetrating to me, because my chocolate cake has to have whipped cream, sprinkles, and some powdered sugar.
Yep.
But it has to, maybe a cup of coffee. But that is, for me, one of my biggest challenges, which is quality. So in the world, I'm not willing to undercut quality. And it's this huge back and forth, that, see a person with no shoes, what about if they have no feet? So now you keep cutting it down to the simplest terms. So it's a real quandary in my life, wanting to bring in not only the cake, but the cake adorned. The cake as the best cake you can bring. And this is the challenge that I face in my work and in my life, is that is it possible to maintain that standard, and or not. And so you brought that up in these conversations, and and intentions and all these other things that go with it. But trying to find out where the strike zone is. Where is it? Where can you modulate those aspects and be happy and be content with that?
Thank you. That's a. I think as we develop the Dhamma, we always strive to be skillful in whatever we're endeavoring, but also we understand the underlying impermanence and uncertainty and unsatisfactoriness of everything. So in trying to make the greatest chocolate cake we've ever had, it might not turn out, and that's okay, because that's part of living in the world. And we apply that to anything we do. When the Buddha awakened, he thought for 2 more weeks, teach this. And he quickly got to the understanding that it's not a teaching that could be perfect, because he's teaching it within an environment that is always impermanent, always uncertain, always changing. It has to be a teaching that falls in the middle way, which is what he called it, of those extremes of absolute most perfect teaching and something that is completely useless. So he taught this middle way. And as we develop the middle way, that middle way is able to be integrated into our life. So again, we would strive to be the most skillful, or maybe even use the word best, in whatever we're doing. And we understand the general unsatisfactory nature of life. And so it's our intention or our motivation for what we're doing in each moment. Does that help
Yes.
put some clarity in
It's a
that?
process.
Yeah, it is. Thank you, Tommy. Mary, good to see you.
Thank you to be here. I love the use of words in this practice, and part of what I'm taking from today is, like Helen said about permissions. Permission to and do less, think less, like just less, right? And then words like removing something from your life and creating more fulfillment in your life. That yin and yang of subtraction and addition. That by removing wrong intentions or mental fabrications, or editing or restraining or all those words, you're adding like you said, meaning and fulfillment to your life, and that's a worthy purpose.
Oh, yeah.
It really is, and just the whole idea of editing and refining your mindfulness. I mean, it's just so grateful. So thank you.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you for recognizing it. That again, it's a self-referential ego, self-anatta, that wants to have everything and won't let go of anything, including the things that continue confusion and deluded thinking. We can't be at peace if we're angry. We can't be at peace if we're grasping. We can't be well concentrated if we're distracted. They don't work in the same mind that way. So we really have a choice what it's going to be. Are we going to have a fulfilling and meaningful life, well concentrated, at peace, or not? Again, it relates right back to karma. It's our choice. Thank you for bringing that up. Jay, good to see you this morning. How are you?
Good, thanks. How about you?
I'm good. Thanks for asking.
You have a lovely hound there. You talk about the embellished chocolate cake. I've got to say that, standard poodles are wonderful. Golden retrievers are wonderful. A golden doodle or whatever you call them, it's like having an egg in your beer.
It's as good as it gets, folks. He knows it too. I cling to him.
You can do worse. He's a smiley fellow. It's like great comfort to both of you.
He's a very happy dog.
As it relates to the different ideas that have been floating around his morning, a lot of different ideas, and hard for me to follow what the different paths that people are pursuing. But at the moment, in my day-to-day, it's been pointed out to me that I see things in a negative light and see things in the future as being possibly negative. This will fail, the car will break down, stuff like that. So that's what I'm kind of working on here the last few days or lately. Because, it seems like something I've got to stop doing, so much. I'm not expecting everything to go to shit.
It's a more pleasant way of living when you let go of that.
If you can, it's probably a good idea.
And even if those things don't occur, the present quality of your mind is affected by that, isn't it?
Right.
By thinking about that.
Yeah.
When I left the dentist's office last night, my car wouldn't start. Or yesterday. And it was this great opportunity to meet this wonderful guy and ask him to jump my car. We had a great conversation. He wanted to know, well, what do you do? And I said, I teach meditation. He was a little bit interested in it a little bit, So. And the reason why I bring that up, I didn't have to think about it at all, and yet my car still wouldn't start. The negative projection wasn't necessary. It was still there.
Well, yeah, it is. You expect it to start. You probably wouldn't spend much time fretting. If you had a 1992 Buick or something, you'd expect it to not start.
And all the worrying that we do never amounts to. There was a time in my life, and everybody has this experience, when I didn't know where the next buck was coming from, and I was constantly worried about it. But all that worry never brought any money in my pocket, and and honestly, it didn't keep it away either. And it wasn't like I was manifesting poorness, like some people would say. It was just where I was living, or how I was living my life at the time. We like to think that we can create an outward experience through our thoughts. That idea of creative visualization. We only can create our response to what occurs. Get into the subtleties of thinking. We have to think. In order for me to come here this morning, I had to get up and think about it. That I need to be here at 8 o'clock and set up, etc. But that's not a projection onto the future. I'm not trying to create a scenario. There's a big difference. There's a difference between practical thinking and hoping and worrying. It's two different things. Thank you, Jen. I'm glad you're here this morning. Lisa, good to see you.
Good to see you too, John. It's so great to be here.
I agree.
I don't understand a lot of it. I think a lot of people are on a different level and pretty basic. But that's how I try to think of things in a very basic way. I try not to make them too complicated. And I know there's a simplicity to the Buddhist teaching, and yet it's enormous. It's like two opposite things. It's this whole world, but it could be, simplified and whittled down to some. There's dukkha, and then we have to accept it and be okay with it. So my mind went off onto what everybody said, but the thing about the chocolate cake, other than it takes you away of where you're from, but that's one word. A delicious chocolate cake, and actually do love chocolate cake too. So I make a really good chocolate cake.
Sure.
You can
Do
stay.
you want?
But you have to bring cake.
I was gonna say, can you bring
I'll try to do that. Okay, so like everyone's imagining some sort of chocolate cake, but a slice of it and you enjoy it. So this culture is just all we want are to be inundated with like good things all the time, and I think all that is to make people's minds. It's opposite to the Buddhist teaching. It's just like to forget all the bad stuff and just like all this stuff, and my phone has to be a new color and who knows what. But the thing about good things is that they're so much better. You have a delicious piece of chocolate cake, but if you add another piece and another, then it makes sick. So that's what I think the mindset, a lot of people's mindset is that they're really making their minds sick with being inundated with like too much good stuff, but it's not good. What's good is one, nice piece of chocolate cake, and don't make yourself sick. I don't know, but that's the way I see it.
It's a good way to see it. You're talking about restraint.
That's the middle way. It's like if you see the bad thing, try to see the good thing. If you see only good things, try to see the bad thing.
Yes, that's right.
It's like a lot of people say, oh, why me? And then you always have to say, why not me?
Yeah.
It's so arbitrary. It could be you.
That's what occurs.
There are some people that never think they're worthy, so they have to say, why not me for the opposite reason?
Yeah, thank you. The Dhamma is very simple. One of the reasons why we need meditation to develop a well-concentrated mind is so we're not distracted by the things that seem to make it very complicated. But it's only because of that distracted state. That's what all that stuff out there is for, is to keep us distracted. The world at large has created a very good internal system of keeping us all well distracted. And I'm not saying that like it's some kind of conspiracy. If you think about the nature of an ego personality, an individual one is to maintain distraction, maintain ignorance. That's reflected in the world. We've developed great systems to keep ourselves distracted. It's just the way it is. Thank you. Maura.
Remember I passed.
Oh, okay.
Good morning.
All right. Bodhi? Got anything to say? No? Debbie, good morning. Good to see you.
Good morning. Well, I related to a lot of what was said, and
people aren't great at articulating things. And one of the things was somebody just talked about repetition in terms of learning, and that feels so important to me. I feel like I'm doing my daily meditation. It's almost like I need to hear, have more input. It's like my clients go to AA. It's like they do the 90-90 because it's not just about consulting, it's about changing your lifestyle. You know, and it's like that constant input and that constant connection. And you know, whether it's daily readings, daily meetings, talking to your sponsor. You know, I feel like I need more of that to keep me on track. Because I think for me, the craving and clinging is big. And I've talked about this before, but for me, it's more about people and places, like wanting to be around my family who's on the West Coast, but having a life here and that conflict. So there's a lot of craving and clinging around the company of those people in my life. But I had a kind of a breakthrough, I think, in terms of like, when Jen said this year she went back to school, it was different. Well, I didn't get to go home and all these more family reunions, so I was trying to find a way to go home. I was going to go home for my sister's 60th in October, and it was like, I was getting into that whole, when I go, it's like, I'm going to make this work, and I'm going to find the perfect rental for all of us to stay at, and I'm going to find the perfect flight, and I get obsessed almost with the making the arrangements, and all of a sudden one day I was like, I'm spending so much energy into this, and it's taking over my life, you know, and being on this computer and doing this. Emailed my sister and said, I'm not going to come. I need to just take a break from all this. I need to have a vacation where I'm driving somewhere and by the sea and just having peace and quiet and doing this different, you know. And it's sad on some levels for me to not be there for her, with her, and my other sister, and my family. But you know, it was just a shift for me about all that activity and that. And it is about clinging to having this best vacation, this best visit, making it good for her and me and everybody.
Yeah.
It's really about me. And,
and not wanting to miss anything.
Yes, doing it right. Having this relationship before, you know, you can't do it anymore. Can't travel, can't. Anyway, the bottom line is that I was able to have some restraint, but it came from this. It came from this peaceful place, this decision. So it felt like I started to put something into motion for me in terms of practice. I mean, something into practice. And there was a real sense of peace around it, the impermanence, understanding the impermanence. Yeah, so I guess, you know, I'm working on it, but I do feel constantly like that craving, clinging, you know, making my garden better, you know, all that. You know? So just trying to step back. If I don't water my garden one day, you know, it's okay.
Thank you. It's your skillful response is the Dhamma unfolding in your life. And it's important to recognize the need for seclusion at times. It's more important at times. And I don't mean to, you know, run away from the world, but just to be with yourself and be quiet. It's so important. Good for you. Thank you, Debbie. Liz, good to see you.
Good to see you. It's really good to be here. I was listening to your talk on going with the flow, and I think both of these examples kind of fold into that and into the idea of karma, where if you have this level of expectations for things to be completely right, you can flip that and use it to not go with the flow. So in other words, an unsatisfactory chocolate cake is presented to you and you can resist it. right? So you can use those same skills that, you know, the conditioned mind of wanting to have this heightened quality can also work as a benefit to not going with the flow.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's the Anya
So I've been
Sutta.
thinking about that a lot, and I've also been thinking about, you know, like I was a caseworker, I did child abuse investigation, and valuable this would have been to prevent burnout, because you're not having to be the best social worker to save the most lives, to, you know, a child might be in a dangerous, you know, all those things that you kind of do to yourself when you're, you know, thinking that you have to be the best at it, or, you know, creating a lot of stress and dukkha for yourself if things don't work out the way you would have wanted them to, because at that point you think you have control over these things.
Yeah.
And you don't. So, you know, this is just on so many levels in terms of creating some dispassion around the idea of having to be perfect.
Yeah.
And having to do things perfectly.
Thank you. Because we start to understand dukkha. That's part of it. That's awakening. We understand karma. We don't burn out in those intense situations because we don't take it personally anymore. You know, it's just what we're doing. More.
Can I take back my little?
Nothing is permanent, Maura. Even passing is not
What I
permanent.
was going to say, and then now was, you know, after Jen said what she said, because what I originally was thinking about was I had an incredibly long work week. It was astoundingly long, and the days, the last 3, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, were 12, 11, and 12 or something. After, you know, 2 10-hour days and only 1 day off. So, but what I found so interesting is, and it was really truthful. Sometimes I'm just ignorant of my sleepiness, but I was not tired at all, nor was I burnt out, nor was I felt just fine, really, yesterday, because, you know, I always think of Matt, you know, when I was like, I can't, my job is so hard, there's not enough time, and people are asking me a million things, and, you know, so I really work, and Matt's like, every moment is a moment to release stress, and, you know, I was like, so he didn't give me any out that day. This was like I remember it was a cold day, and around Christmas last year, but, so I really work on that, like, just where am I clinging in this moment, myself, or things to be different, or people to be different, and it's just amazing to go through the day, you know, and I also maybe, and some people wouldn't think I get enough sleep, but I really devote a lot, like, I'm very serious about trying to get enough sleep, because I know how important that is for the day. So it's so nice to end a work week that's very intense, and I did fulfill everything that was asked of me, and I was perfectly at peace with that. And these people didn't like it, and like, and I did a lot of work, and I didn't feel burnt out. So I thought, well, that was a lot of work. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions or comments on karma? We'll continue it next week, I think, maybe for at least a couple more weeks. All right, let's finish with metta, as we always do. Can't think of any announcements except that the retreat's coming up, October 19th. If you're going, please sign up. Come here.
He was he's in our house and he loves our dog and he kept sniffing him. And all I had to do was say, that he loves our dog. And he went craving and clinging,
So,
and clinging.
we'll finish with the Buddha's words on metta. So find your relaxed meditative posture. Gently close your eyes and gently close your mouths. And just take a moment to become aware of the sensation of breathing in your body. And let that mindfulness of your breath cease any distracting thoughts to the past or to the future, or that may have arisen from our talk today. And these are the Buddha's words on metta from the Karaniya Metta Sutta. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud or demanding in nature, the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. Wishing in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. None through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings. Creating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, free from hatred and ill will. Whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness, one should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding. By not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. Thank you all for a wonderful class. Peace.